Do you ever get to the end of a long day, look back at your packed schedule and your endless to-do list, and feel like you did not actually accomplish anything that truly matters? You answered 100 emails, ran from meeting to meeting, and put out fires all day long. You were busy. But were you effective? For so many of us, the answer is no. We feel like we are spinning our wheels faster and faster, but we are not actually going anywhere meaningful. What if the reason for this has nothing to do with a lack of effort? What if it is because we have been sold a lie about what success really is? Today, we are taking a deep dive into one of the most influential books ever written on this subject, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. Covey reveals a powerful truth. For the last century, we have been chasing what he calls the personality ethic. This is the world of life hacks, social media image, and quick fix techniques for how to influence people. It is all about managing perceptions from the outside. But this approach is like painting over a rotten foundation. It looks good for a little while, but it is doomed to crack. This video explores the powerful alternative Covey discovered by studying the timeless principles of lasting success. It is called the character ethic. This is not about the tricks you learn. It is about the person you become. It is about building a solid core of integrity, courage, and wisdom. It is an inside-out approach that promises not just to change what you do, but to fundamentally upgrade your entire operating system for life. We just ended with a powerful promise from Stephen Covey. The idea that we can fundamentally upgrade our life's operating system by working from the inside out. But to truly grasp what that means, we first need to understand the broken model we are all living in right now. We need to explore the critical shift that happened in our culture. A shift that changed our very definition of success and left so many of us feeling lost. This is the move from what Covey called the character ethic to the personality ethic. For the first 150 years of American history, the idea of success was built on a solid foundation. This was the character ethic. The books and articles from that time focused on developing the essential virtues of a good person. These were timeless principles like integrity, humility, courage, justice, and patience. The core belief was that a successful life could only be built on the foundation of a good character. Developing your character was like building the deep, unseen foundation of a skyscraper. It was slow, difficult work that happened on the inside, but it was the only way to create something that would truly last. Then, around the time of World War I, something changed. Society's focus began to shift from the roots of the tree to the leaves. We moved into the age of the personality ethic. Suddenly, success became less about who you were and more about what you looked like. The popular advice shifted to things like public image, communication techniques, influencing skills, and having a positive mental attitude. It was no longer about your deep character, but about the personality you projected to the world. Now, Covey is very clear that these personality skills are not bad. They can be very useful. The problem is that we began to see them as the key to success, forgetting the character that must support them. When you try to use these techniques without a strong moral core, they become manipulative. The book uses a powerful analogy for this. It is like trying to put a thick layer of frosting on a rotten cake. It might look appealing for a moment, but the rottenness underneath will always come through. Think about a modern example. You can learn a sales technique that tells you to mirror a client's body language and ask about their hobbies to build rapport. This is the personality ethic in action. But if you do not genuinely care about that person and are only trying to trick them into a sale, your lack of character will eventually leak out. People have an amazing ability to sense when something is not genuine. The relationship you build will be hollow, and any trust you gain will be fragile. Lasting success in work and in life can only be built on the rock-solid foundation of who you are. To really understand this inside-out approach, we first have to understand the concept of a paradigm. A paradigm is more than just a belief or an attitude. It is the lens through which you see everything. It is your mental map of the world. Most of the time, you are not even aware of your own paradigms. You simply assume that the way you see things is the way they really are, but you do not see the world objectively. You see the world not as it is, but as you are. Covey uses a brilliant analogy to make this crystal clear. Imagine you are trying to find a specific building in the middle of Chicago. You have a map, and you are studying it intensely, but you are completely lost and getting more frustrated by the second. You could try to change your behavior by driving faster. You could try to change your attitude by being more positive, but you will never find your destination. Why? Because the map you were given is actually a map of Detroit. The problem is not your attitude or your behavior. The problem is that you have the wrong map. This is true for our lives. If we want to make a massive, lasting change, it is not enough to just try harder. We must be willing to examine and change our fundamental paradigms. We have to be willing to look at our map. This is what is known as a paradigm shift, and it is the source of almost every major breakthrough in human history. The book describes a famous experiment that shows this perfectly. A professor shows one group of students a drawing of a young, fashionable woman. He shows a second group a drawing of an old, sad-looking woman. After conditioning them with these images, he shows both groups the same third picture. This picture is an ambiguous image that can be seen as either the young woman or the old woman. The result is fascinating. The students who first saw the young woman can only see the young woman in the new image. and the students who first saw the old woman can only see the old woman. When they are all in the same room arguing about what they see, they cannot understand how the other side can be so wrong. They are all looking at the exact same lines on a page, but they are seeing two completely different realities. This is the power of our conditioning. This brings us back to the core idea of inside out. It means that if you want to change a situation, you must first change yourself. And to change yourself, you must first change the lens through which you see the world. If you want a happier marriage, stop focusing on your spouse's flaws and instead work on becoming a more patient and loving partner. If you want to be a more trusted manager, stop looking for new management tricks and focus on becoming a person of unshakable integrity. This is the foundational principle of all 7 habits. True effectiveness flows from the inside out. But this raises a huge question. If our paradigms are so deeply programmed into us by our upbringing and our experiences, are we just stuck with them? How can we actually take control and rewrite our own mental maps? The answer lies in the very first and most important habit, the one that makes all the others possible. We just established the book's core philosophy, that all lasting change comes from the inside out. But this leads to a critical question. If we feel like our life script has been written for us by our circumstances, our past, or other people, how do we take back the pen? How do we become the author of our own story? The answer is found in the first and most fundamental habit, the one that serves as the bedrock for all the others. This is habit 1. Be proactive. Being proactive is so much more than just taking initiative. It is a deep, powerful principle that changes everything. It means accepting the profound truth that you, and you alone, are responsible for your own life. You are in the driver's seat. To understand this, think about the common things that happen to us every day. Your boss gets angry. You get stuck in traffic. A friend is rude to you. These events are the stimulus, and our reaction to them is our response. For most people, there is no space between the stimulus and the response. They are fused together. Someone cuts me off in traffic, so I get angry. The weather's bad, so my mood is bad. In this model, you are not in control. Your environment is dictating your feelings. This is called being reactive. But Stephen Covey introduces a life-altering idea, one he learned from the writings of Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist who survived the horrors of the Nazi concentration camps. Frankl endured unimaginable suffering. His entire family was killed. He was tortured and starved. By any measure, this is a stimulus that should completely destroy a person's spirit. But it was in this hell that Frankl made a world-changing discovery. He realized that while the Nazis could control his body and his environment, they could never, ever touch his ultimate freedom. They could not control his consciousness. In the space between what was happening to him and his response to it, he was free. He could choose to find meaning in his suffering. He could choose to imagine himself teaching students about his experiences after the war. This is the very essence of being proactive. It is the realization that between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space lies our greatest power as human beings. It is our freedom to choose. We are not just animals acting on instinct. We have the unique ability to pause, to reflect, and to choose a response that is aligned with our deepest values, not just our fleeting emotions. Covey explains that we can do this because we have 4 special human gifts. We have self-awareness, the ability to observe our own thoughts and actions. We have imagination, the ability to create new possibilities in our minds. We have conscience, our deep inner sense of right and wrong. And we have independent will, our power to act based on our self-awareness, free from all other influences. So, being proactive means we take full responsibility. Your life is not a result of your genetics or your upbringing. It is a result of your choices. Proactive people know their behavior is a product of their own conscious decisions. Reactive people let their behavior be dictated by their feelings and their circumstances. A proactive person is like a thermostat. They set their own internal temperature based on their values, and they maintain it no matter what the weather is like outside. A reactive person is like a thermometer. Their internal state simply reflects the outside temperature. If people are nice to them, they feel good. If people are mean, they feel bad. One of the easiest ways to see the difference is to listen to your language. Reactive people use language that shifts responsibility. They say things like, "There's nothing I can do," or "That's just the way I am." They say, "He makes me so mad," which implies someone else controls their feelings. The underlying message is always, "I am not responsible." Proactive people use different language. They say, "Let's look at our options." They say, "I can choose a different approach," or "I control my own feelings." Their language shows that they are the ones driving the action. Another crucial part of being proactive is knowing where to focus your energy. We all have a wide range of concerns in our lives. Our health, our job, the economy, world events. These all exist in our circle of concern. But within that big circle, there is a smaller circle. This smaller circle contains all the things we actually have the power to do something about. This is our circle of influence. Reactive people spend their time and energy worrying about their circle of concern. They complain about things they cannot control, like the news or the behavior of others. The result is that their negative energy actually makes their circle of influence shrink. They become even more powerless. Proactive people, on the other hand, focus their efforts on their circle of influence. They work on the things they can change: their habits, their skills, their attitude, their relationships. And as they work on themselves, their positive energy begins to expand their circle of influence, giving them more and more control over their lives. At its heart, being proactive is about making and keeping promises. Every time you make a commitment to yourself, no matter how small, and you follow through, you build your character. You strengthen your proactive muscle. And when you make a mistake, the proactive approach is to own it, learn from it, and correct it immediately. Mastering this habit is like finally realizing you are the one writing the script of your life. And once you truly accept that you are the creator, you can then ask the most important question of all: what kind of life do I want to create? This question leads us directly to the next, and equally important habit. In the last part, we established that, through habit 1, we are the ones in the driver's seat of our own lives. This is an incredibly empowering realization. But just having your hands on the steering wheel is not enough. You also need to know where you are going. After all, you can be driving the most powerful car in the world, but if you do not have a clear destination, all that speed is useless. You might just be heading in the wrong direction, faster than ever before. This is why, after becoming proactive, the second habit is so critical. This is habit 2. Begin with the end in mind. To help us find this destination, Covey asks us to perform a powerful and startling thought experiment. Take a moment and imagine you are on your way to a funeral. When you arrive, you see friends and family gathered to pay their respects. But as you walk to the front, you look inside the casket and you realize it is you. This is your own funeral, 3 years from today. The people who are about to speak are your loved ones, your friends, and your colleagues. Now ask yourself the most important question of all. What would you want them to say about you? What kind of person do you want to be remembered as? What contributions do you hope they will mention? What impact do you want to have left on their lives? The answers that come from your heart in this moment reveal your deepest, most fundamental values. This is your end. So many of us get caught up in the busyness of life, climbing the ladder of success with incredible speed, only to find out too late that the ladder was leaning against the wrong wall. Only by having a clear vision of the end can we ensure that every step we take today is moving us in the right direction. This leads to a core principle that Covey calls the 2 creations. Every single thing in our world is created twice. Think about building a house. The first creation is the mental one. This is the blueprint. The architect designs every detail before a single nail is hammered. The second creation is the physical one. This is when the construction crew takes that blueprint and builds the actual house. The same is true for a business. First comes the business plan, then comes the actual work of running the company. Many of our failures in life are not failures in the second creation. They are not because we did not work hard enough. They are failures in the first creation. The blueprint was flawed, or, even worse, there was no blueprint at all. Habit 1 says you are the creator. Habit 2 says, you must take responsibility for that first creation. You have to proactively design the life you want, rather than letting other people or your circumstances design it for you. This is the vital difference between leadership and management. Covey explains this with a vivid story. Imagine a group of people cutting their way through a dense jungle with machetes. These are the workers. Behind them are the managers, sharpening the machetes and setting up work schedules to maximize efficiency. This is management, doing things right. But the leader is the one who climbs the tallest tree, surveys the entire landscape, and yells down, "Wrong jungle." This is leadership, doing the right things. In our lives, we can get so busy managing our efficiency, cutting through the daily undergrowth, that we forget to lead our own lives. We forget to climb the tree to make sure we are even in the right jungle. Leadership must always come before management. So how do we practice this leadership in our own lives? Covey recommends that we create a personal mission statement. This is not just a catchy slogan. It is your personal constitution. It is a written document where you clarify your core values and define what you want to be in terms of your character, and what you want to do in terms of your contributions. This mission statement becomes a solid, unchanging standard by which you can measure everything else in your life. When you are faced with a difficult decision, you can consult your mission statement to make sure your choice is in harmony with your deepest values. Now that we have this blueprint, this personal constitution that defines our ultimate destination, a new question arises. How do we actually build the house? How do we translate this grand vision into our daily actions and make sure we are always moving toward our goal? This requires us to master the third habit. We have now done the deep, internal work. With habit 1, we accepted that we are in charge. With habit 2, we created the map of our life by defining our ultimate destination. So, what is next? We have to actually start the journey. A powerful vision is useless if it just sits on a shelf. This is where the third habit comes in. It is the practical, day-by-day, moment-by-moment execution of the first 2 habits. This is habit 3. Put first things first. This is where the rubber meets the road. If habit 2 was the first mental creation, then habit 3 is the second, physical creation. It requires us to use our independent will, our power, to act according to our values, rather than our moods or impulses. It is the habit of discipline. But Covey makes a powerful distinction here. He says the popular phrase, time management, is wrong. You cannot manage time. It passes at the same rate for everyone. What you can manage is yourself. Therefore, this habit is not about managing your clock. It is about managing your life. To do this, Covey introduces an incredibly powerful tool known as the time management matrix. It forces us to categorize every activity in our lives based on two simple factors. Is it urgent and is it important? Urgent matters are the things that press on us and demand our immediate attention, like a ringing phone or a deadline that is due in an hour. Important matters are the things that contribute to our personal mission and our most significant goals. This creates 4 quadrants where we spend our time. Quadrant 1 is for activities that are both urgent and important. This is the quadrant of crises and pressing problems. We all have to spend some time here, but people who live in Quadrant 1 are constantly stressed, exhausted, and putting out fires. Quadrant 3 is for activities that are urgent but not important. This is the quadrant of deception. It is filled with interruptions, some meetings, and many popular activities that feel productive, but are not. They are often important to someone else, not to you. People who spend their time here feel busy all day long, but also feel like they have no control over their lives. Quadrant 4 is for activities that are not urgent and not important. This is the quadrant of pure waste. This includes mindless scrolling on social media or busy work that adds no value. It is often where people escape to when they are overwhelmed by quadrants 1 and 3. This brings us to the final and most critical quadrant. Quadrant 2 is for activities that are important but not urgent. This is the heart of effective personal management. What is in Quadrant 2? Things like building relationships, long-range planning, exercising, preparing for upcoming projects, and learning new skills. These are the things we all know we should do, but we often put them off because they are not screaming for our attention. They require us to be proactive. Highly effective people understand that Quadrant 2 is where real success is built. They have a preventative mindset. They know that by investing time in planning and preparation, they can prevent many problems from ever becoming Quadrant 1 crises. By building strong relationships in Quadrant 2, they have fewer communication fires to put out later. By taking care of their health in Quadrant 2, they have fewer medical emergencies. Spending time here is like investing. It pays huge dividends and actually shrinks the amount of time you are forced to spend in crisis mode. The only way to find time for Quadrant 2 is to have the courage to say no to the unimportant things in Quadrants 3 and 4. But this is only possible if you have a bigger yes burning inside you. That bigger yes is your personal mission, the one you define the habit to. When you know what is truly important to you, it becomes much easier to politely decline the things that are not. So, how do we practically do this? Covey suggests a weekly organizing process focused on Quadrant 2. Each week you identify your key roles in life, like spouse, parent, or manager. Then you choose 1 or 2 important Quadrant 2 goals for each role. Finally, you schedule time on your calendar to work on those specific goals. You are not just prioritizing your schedule, you are scheduling your priorities. These first 3 habits, be proactive, begin with the end in mind, and put first things first, are all about self-mastery. Together, they lead to what Covey calls the private victory. This inner victory of character is the absolutely essential foundation for building effective relationships with other people, but it is only half the journey. Once we have built this strong foundation of independence, we are ready to move to the next level, the public victory. We have now journeyed through the first 3 habits, which are all designed to achieve the private victory. By mastering them, we move from being dependent on others to being truly independent. We have built a strong core of character and self-control, but this is not the final destination. Life is not lived alone on an island. Our greatest opportunities and our most meaningful achievements happen when we interact with other people. To do this effectively, we must move from independence to a higher state, interdependence. Interdependence is the world of we. It is the understanding that a great team can accomplish far more than any single individual. A talented musician is wonderful, but an orchestra can create a symphony. But Covey makes a crucial point. You can only achieve true interdependence after you have first achieved independence. You must get your own house in order first. A person who has not won the private victory is too insecure and too undisciplined to build a healthy collaborative relationship. The private victory must always come before the public victory. The first step into this world of effective relationships is to understand the one concept that underpins them all. Covey calls this the emotional bank account. Imagine that with every single person you know, you have a bank account. But instead of money, the currency in this account is trust. Every interaction you have is either a deposit or a withdrawal. Deposits are the actions that build trust. Withdrawals are the actions that erode it. The balance in this account determines the quality of your relationship. When the account has a high balance, communication is easy, open, and effective. There is a deep reserve of goodwill, which means that if you make a mistake, the other person is likely to give you the benefit of the doubt. But when the account is empty or overdrawn, the relationship is filled with tension and suspicion. You have to walk on eggshells, and every word you say is carefully analyzed. The smallest misunderstanding can explode into a major fight because there is no trust there to soften the blow. So, how do we make consistent deposits into these critical accounts? Covey outlines 6 major ways. First, we must understand the individual. What one person considers a deposit, another might not. You might think buying your child an expensive gift is a huge deposit, but what your child really values is your undivided time playing a game with them. We have to invest the time to understand what is truly important to the other person. Second is attending to the little things. In relationships, the small kindnesses and courtesies are the big things. A word of thanks, a thoughtful gesture, or just putting your phone down to listen are all powerful deposits. Inversely, small acts of disrespect or impatience can be massive withdrawals. Third is keeping commitments. This is one of the biggest deposits you can make. When you make a promise and you keep it, you build an enormous amount of trust. When you break a promise, you can wipe out hundreds of previous deposits in an instant. The lesson is simple: do not make promises lightly, and once you do everything in your power to follow through. Fourth is clarifying expectations. So many relationship problems come from unspoken assumptions. A manager and an employee might have completely different ideas about what a successful project looks like. These unclarified expectations always lead to disappointment and withdrawals. The proactive approach is to discuss and agree upon expectations at the beginning. Fifth is showing personal integrity. Integrity is more than just honesty. It includes being loyal to people who are not present. When you gossip about a coworker behind their back, the person you are talking to learns one clear lesson: you will probably do the same thing to them. True integrity means you speak about people with the same respect, whether they are in the room or not. This builds deep trust with everyone. Finally, we must apologize sincerely when we make a withdrawal. We all make mistakes. When you do, a quick, full, and sincere apology is a major deposit. But this requires the inner strength that comes from the private victory. You have to be strong enough to admit you were wrong without making excuses. The emotional bank account is the foundation of every interdependent relationship. By consistently making deposits, we build the high trust reserves that are necessary for any effective teamwork or deep connection. Now that we understand this, how do we approach our interactions to create outcomes that are good for everyone? This requires another radical shift in our thinking, which leads us to the next habit. We have now established that all effective relationships are built on a foundation of trust, the emotional bank account. With that trust in place, we can begin to work together in truly powerful ways. But what is the right mindset to bring to our interactions? How do we solve problems in a way that strengthens the relationship instead of weakening it? This requires a profound shift in our entire philosophy of success. It is the fourth habit, and it is the heart of leading others. Think win-win. This is not just a negotiation tactic. Win-win is a total philosophy of human interaction. It is a frame of mind and heart that constantly seeks a mutual benefit for everyone involved. It says that it is not about my way or your way, but about a better way. Win-win is based on the paradigm of abundance, the belief that there is plenty of success out there for everybody. Life is not a zero-sum game where one person's victory requires another's defeat. To understand how radical this is, we have to look at the other ways we are programmed to think. The most common is win-lose. This is the competitive paradigm that says, if I win, you lose. Our society often drills this into us. In school, grading on a curve means for you to get an A, someone else has to get a C. In sports, there is only one champion. This mindset is necessary in a true competition, but it is disastrous when applied to your family or your team at work. If you are constantly trying to win arguments with your spouse, the relationship will ultimately lose. The opposite of this is lose-win. This is the doormat paradigm. It says, I will lose so that you can win. People with this mindset just want to keep the peace and be liked, so they constantly give in to the desires of others. But this is not a solution. The suppressed feelings of resentment and bitterness always come back later in uglier ways. When two stubborn, win-lose people get locked in a conflict, they often create lose-lose. This is the philosophy of revenge. Both sides are so determined to make the other person lose that they are willing to hurt themselves just to accomplish it. This is the divorcing couple who would rather destroy their assets than let their ex-partner get a fair share. It is completely irrational and destructive. Finally, there is the simple win mentality. People with this mindset are not trying to make anyone else lose. They just do not care. They are focused completely on getting what they want, and the results for others are irrelevant. In any relationship that matters, the only viable option in the long run is win-win. Any other approach will weaken the trust in the emotional bank account. This is why Covey introduces an even higher expression of this habit: win-win or no deal. This means that if we cannot find a solution that is truly beneficial to both of us, we agree to walk away respectfully. This idea is incredibly liberating. It frees you from the pressure of having to force a deal. You can enter any negotiation with total openness, because you know it is better to have no deal than to have a bad deal that damages a valuable relationship. Of course, achieving win-win outcomes requires more than just a positive attitude. It is built on a foundation of character. It requires integrity, the courage to state your own needs, and the consideration to respect the needs of others. And most importantly, it requires an abundance mentality. The belief that making the pie bigger for everyone is more rewarding than just fighting for your own slice. But even with the right attitude, how do we actually find a win-win solution when the other person has a completely different point of view? How can we create a solution that works for them if we do not even understand what they truly want or need? To do that, we need a powerful communication skill, perhaps the most important one of all. This brings us directly to the core of interpersonal effectiveness, the next habit. We have now embraced the noble philosophy of win-win. We are committed to finding solutions that are good for everyone. But how do we actually do this? How can we possibly discover a win-win solution if we do not even understand what a win looks like for the other person? The answer lies in the fifth habit, a simple principle that will transform every relationship you have. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. This habit is the key to all effective communication, yet it is the one we violate most often. The reason is simple. Most of us do not listen with the intent to understand. We listen with the intent to reply. We are either speaking or we are preparing to speak, filtering everything through our own life story and jumping in to give our own opinion. To show how absurd this is, Covey uses a powerful analogy. Imagine you go to an eye doctor because you are having trouble seeing. Before you can even finish describing your problem, the doctor takes off his own glasses, hands them to you, and says, "Here, try these. They have worked perfectly for me for years." You put them on, but they only make your vision worse. When you tell him you cannot see, he insists, "Just try harder. Be more positive." You would never trust that doctor again. It is absolute malpractice to prescribe before you diagnose. Yet, we do this exact same thing in our conversations every day. Our spouse comes home stressed from work, and before we have taken a moment to understand their frustration, we jump in with our own prescription. "You should just talk to your boss, or don't let it get to you." We are constantly prescribing solutions from our own life, before we have taken the time to accurately diagnose the actual problem. The cure for this is a skill called empathic listening. This is far more than just hearing words. It is listening with your ears, your eyes, and your heart. You listen for the feeling and the meaning behind the words. Your goal is not to agree or disagree. Your goal is to see the world through the other person's eyes, to understand their paradigm, and to feel what they feel. When you listen to someone in this deep way, you give them what Covey calls psychological air. After our need for physical survival, our greatest human need is to be understood, validated, and appreciated. When you give someone the gift of your full, empathetic attention, you are filling that deep need. And a magical thing happens. Once a person feels truly heard, their defensiveness melts away. Their negative energy disappears, and they become open to your influence and to solving the problem together. So how do we do this? It is about reflecting back not just the words, but the feeling. If your child comes to you and says, "I hate school," a normal response would be to advise or dismiss them. But an empathetic response would be to say, "It sounds like you're feeling really frustrated with school right now." When you do this, the other person feels a profound sense of relief. They think, someone finally gets it. And in that moment, the door to real communication swings wide open. Once you have truly understood the other person, you are ready to move to the second half of the habit, seek to be understood. The ancient Greeks had a three-step sequence for persuasion: ethos, pathos, and logos. Ethos is your personal credibility and character. Pathos is the emotional connection you build with the other person. And logos is the logic of your argument. Most people lead with logic, but it is useless if you have not first established your character and built an emotional connection. By listening first, you build that connection. Because the other person knows you understand them, they become far more willing to listen to you. Now, what happens when two people who are committed to win-win use this powerful skill to deeply understand each other? The result is not a simple compromise. The result is something far better. This is the magic of creative cooperation, which leads us to the next habit. We have now arrived at the peak of the public habits. We have committed ourselves to a win-win philosophy, and we have learned to listen with true empathy. What happens when we bring these powerful principles together in a high-trust relationship? The result is not just a good solution or a fair compromise. The result is pure magic. It is the sixth habit, the habit of creative cooperation, synergize. Synergy is the simple idea that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. It means that 1 plus 1 does not equal 2. It can equal 3 or 10 or even 100. It is the process of creating a third alternative, a solution that is far better than what either person could have come up with on their own. When we truly cooperate, we can produce results that are beyond our individual capabilities. So what is the secret to achieving this? The answer is simple, but it goes against most of our conditioning. The key to synergy is to value the differences between people. Most of us see disagreement as a threat. We feel uncomfortable when someone has a different opinion because we think unity means sameness. But highly effective people see it differently. They do not just tolerate differences. They seek them out. They understand that if two people have the exact same opinion, then one of them is unnecessary. It is only when you combine different perspectives that you can create something truly new and insightful. It is crucial to understand that synergy is not the same as compromise. In a compromise, 1 plus 1 equals about 1.5. Both sides give up something to find a middle ground they can live with. It is functional, but it is not creative. Synergy is about working together to invent a third option that is better for everyone than their original ideas. Covey gives a perfect example of this. A husband wants to take the family on a fishing trip he has been planning for years. But his wife wants to use the vacation time to visit her sick mother in another state. This is a classic conflict. A compromise might be to split the vacation time, leaving neither of them fully satisfied. But the synergistic path is different. By applying the last two habits, they first seek a win-win solution, and then seek to truly understand each other. The husband listens empathically to his wife's deep concern for her mother. The wife listens and understands her husband's need for family bonding and recreation. Once they both feel genuinely understood, they stop fighting and start creating together. They ask, is there a way we can do both? Maybe they can find a beautiful place to camp and fish that is near the mother's house. Maybe they can find a way for the whole family to help care for her, turning it into a meaningful service opportunity. By valuing each other's needs, they can create a third alternative that is more fulfilling than either of their original plans. Of course, this kind of creative cooperation can only happen in a high-trust environment. You need a very high balance in your emotional bank account. In a low-trust situation, people are defensive and protective. They are not willing to be vulnerable and share their real ideas. This leads to what Covey calls negative synergy, where the group is actually less effective than the individuals within it. It is like trying to drive a car with one foot on the gas and one foot on the brake. Habit 6 is the ultimate expression of the previous habits. It is where our character, our listening skills, and our commitment to mutual benefit come together to create new and better realities. But to consistently operate at this high level requires an enormous amount of personal energy. A powerful tool is useless if its blade is dull. So how do we stay sharp? How do we ensure we have the capacity to practice all these habits? This brings us to the final habit, the one that makes all the others possible. We have now reached the final habit, the one that holds all the others together. To explain it, Covey tells a simple story. A man in the woods is working feverishly to saw down a tree. He has been at it for hours. He is completely exhausted, and he is making very little progress. A person walks by and watches him for a few minutes, then asks, "Why don't you take a break for a few minutes to sharpen your saw? I am sure you would cut much faster." The man, without even looking up, replies with frustration, "I don't have time to sharpen the saw. I am too busy sawing." This story is a perfect metaphor for our own lives. We are that man. We are so busy sawing away at our work, our problems, and our responsibilities that we feel we do not have time to take care of ourselves. We neglect the very instrument we are using to get results. This brings us to the 7th habit, the one that makes all the other habits possible: sharpen the saw. This habit is about preserving and enhancing your single greatest asset, you. It is the principle of balanced self-renewal. It is about taking the time to take care of the goose that lays the golden eggs. Sharpening the saw is the ultimate quadrant 2 activity. It is important but rarely feels urgent, so we put it off. But it is the most powerful investment we can possibly make because it improves our ability to handle everything else in our lives. Covey explains that we need to do this in 4 key dimensions of our nature. First is the physical dimension. This involves taking care of your body through healthy eating, getting enough rest and relaxation, and consistent exercise. Many of us see exercise as something we will do if we have time, but this is a huge mistake. Investing just a few hours a week in physical activity provides a massive return in the form of increased energy and resilience for all the other hours of the week. Second is the spiritual dimension. This is your core, your center, your commitment to your value system. This is a highly personal area. For some, it might mean daily prayer or meditation. For others, it could be spending quiet time in nature, listening to great music, or reading inspirational literature. Taking time for spiritual renewal connects you with your deepest purpose and provides a profound sense of peace and perspective. Third is the mental dimension. Our minds also need to be constantly developed, or they will become dull. This means committing to a life of continuous learning long after your formal education is over. You can do this by reading good books that broaden your mind, and by writing down your thoughts in a journal to clarify your thinking. It means seeking out new ideas and skills that challenge your current way of seeing the world. Finally, there is the social and emotional dimension. This part of our lives is renewed through our relationships with others, and is directly tied to the habits we have already discussed. Every time you practice empathic listening, every time you work toward a win-win solution, and every time you make a deposit in someone's emotional bank account, you are not just improving your relationships, you are renewing and strengthening your own emotional core. These 4 dimensions are all connected. When you work on one, you positively impact all the others. When you improve your physical health, you also improve your mental sharpness. The key is balanced renewal. This process lifts us onto what Covey calls an upward spiral of growth. We learn a new principle, we commit to living it, and we do it. As we live it, we move to a higher level of understanding, where we are ready to learn and grow even more. Habit 7 is not just one more thing to add to our to-do list. It is the habit that makes all the other habits sustainable. It ensures that we always have the energy, strength, and clarity to live a life of effectiveness. Now that we have explored all 7 habits, let's tie everything together and look at the ultimate promise of this powerful philosophy. We have now journeyed through all 7 habits of highly effective people. We started from the inside, building a strong character through the private victory. We then moved outward to create high-trust relationships in the public victory, all sustained by the final habit of balanced self-renewal. So, what is the ultimate message we should take away from this journey? The most important thing to remember is that the 7 habits are not a checklist of productivity hacks you can try from time to time. They are a complete, integrated framework. Each habit builds on the one before it and reinforces the others. They work together to create a life of ultimate effectiveness. This path of growth is not a straight line, but an upward spiral. You learn a principle, you commit to living it, and you do it. As you act, you move to a higher level of understanding, ready to learn, commit, and do on an even deeper plane. This journey gives us the power to become what Covey calls a transition figure. This is a person who stops negative patterns from being passed down from one generation to the next. Many of us inherit scripts of anger, victimhood, or blame from our families and our culture. But by choosing to live a life based on principles, we can stop those destructive cycles. We can take the hurt and the hardship and transform it. We can create a new, more positive legacy for our children and for everyone we influence. This may be the most important work any of us will ever do. The power of this book is not in just knowing the habits, but in living them. Do not feel overwhelmed by trying to master all 7 at once. The path to change starts with a single step. Look at the 7 habits and ask yourself which one speaks most directly to a challenge you are facing right now. Then, just pick one small thing you can do today. Make one simple promise to yourself and keep it. That is being proactive. The next time you talk with your spouse or your child, make it your only goal to truly understand them without trying to fix their problems. That is seeking first to understand. Every time you make a small choice that is aligned with these principles, you are making a deposit in your own character. You are strengthening your integrity and building the capacity to live a more effective and joyful life. Be patient with yourself, but be persistent. The 7 habits offer more than just a path to success. They offer a path to a life of meaning, balance, and deep internal peace. They give you the blueprint to become the creative force of your own life.